Hello to our freaky family. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Kandi.
And this is Sips of Crime. Welcome back, everybody, to Sips of Crime, your favorite true crime podcast.
Hopefully it better be. One of your favorites.
Yes, at least one of your favorites. How you doing, Kandi?
I'm doing good. Ready for my birthday.
Yes, it is coming up. We've got some fun things on the schedule.
How have you been?
I've been good. I've just been staying busy and trying to stay ahead of the curve. This is kind of one of the first times that I have been like fully caught up with everything. It's been a while since I've felt like, you know, like I'm in a position right now where I'm like actually sitting down to relax and I'm thinking that I forgot something and I'm going through calendars on my phone and like checking text messages and dates and stuff like that, but there's nothing there and it feels good.
But it has to make you feel even better though that you're looking and you're like, oh, I already did that. Oh, I already did that.
Yes.
Oh, we're ahead of schedule.
Yes, and I am one of those people, like I am a planner. I am a to-doer, to-do list maker. I'm very, very picky about my paper planner. It is my holy grail and it goes everywhere with me. I do use a day designer. If you guys are like me and you guys really want a good planner, but those ones that you're getting from Target and at Walmart just aren't cutting it, try the Day Designer.
They're super cute.
Yes, they come in all sorts of colors. They're hardback.
I like how they have like weekly, daily, monthly.
Yes, that's what sets it apart, I think, is the fact that you get one page is dedicated to one day. And that was the game changer for me. So I'll link them below. You guys definitely go check them out. We don't have like an affiliate link or anything and no discounts for you, but absolute best planner. And I have been through a few. So I am offering you a very educated suggestion. We have also gotten a lot more organized. Here on the podcast, we were kind of a little loosey-goosey there for a little while because of all the different things that we had going on, but we've got all of that ready to go, and that's been good. We recorded our first Patreon! Yay!
If you haven't checked it out, I hope you go and check it out and love it.
Yes, we had so much fun. You guys, if you follow us on social media, you already probably have heard, but we did finally get our Patreon up and running and introduced, and we recorded, and I'm currently in the process of editing, but by the time you guys are going to be getting it, it'll be live and posted. But yeah, so it's going to be $1 a month. You can find the links to all of the stuff to go and get signed up for that on our website, sipsofcrime.com. If you guys have any questions about that, I'll help you to the best of my ability. I think I've said this enough at this point, but we don't know what we're doing
yet.
We're
learning.
We have no idea what we're doing right now. So, I can help you to the best of my ability, and otherwise you'll have to just go through Patreon, I guess. I don't really know any other avenue, but like I said, we're here for you as much as we can be. So, just thank you guys again for your support and excitement around that. We have a story to get to.
Yes, we do.
It's your story today.
It is. It's not a long one. It's a little short one.
But we also have some wine that we do first. We have to do that first.
We have to introduce the wine. It's not called Sips of Crime for nothing.
For nothing.
So this is a cupcake wine. It's lighthearted. It's a Pinot Grigio, and it's only 80 calories per 5 ounces, not the bottle.
If you do the proper pour.
I like to tell myself I'm properly pouring it.
I eyeball it. You know, I learned this trick.
Whatever looks great to me.
Yeah, whatever looks good, like whatever. I learned this really great trick actually pretty early on. Glasses that you use are actually shaped specifically for whatever type of wine you are supposed to drink out of them. I think that's pretty common knowledge, but one of the cool things about it is like technically according to your glass, you are supposed to pour up to the largest part of the glass. It is shaped this way properly, and this goes for all wine glasses and all wines. But if you enjoy the correct wine paired with the correct glass, and you fill it up to the largest part of whatever that glass is, your nose and mouth fits perfectly when you take a sip of it to enjoy the wine the way that it's supposed to be enjoyed.
That makes sense, though.
Yeah, it's down to a science to the point to where like the shape of the glass puts the aroma into your nose in a certain direction. It's like, it's bonkers how much science goes into this.
Our new collection of delicious 8% alcohol wines that are bright and bursting with refreshing fruit-forward flavor. That's a tongue twister. With only 80 calories and less than 1 gram of natural sugar per 5-ounce serving. Cupcake Lighthearted brings full flavor to all of life's lighter moments. Now that's just pure joy. That's what it says.
That's just pure joy.
Its bright, refreshing notes of honey crisp apples and lemon zest fill the palate and lead to a long finish full of stone fruit flavors.
Cheers. Not sweet.
Not sweet at all.
Not sweet at all. That is a drier Pinot Grigio, which is a little surprising for cupcake.
Well, and that's what my thought process was before I tasted it, was when it was cupcake, which is usually fairly sweet.
I was about to say, they're not the sweetest vineyard out there. They don't necessarily specialize in sweet wines per se, but they do tend to be a little more sugary than some of your other.
And maybe that's why, because it doesn't have, but it's less than 1 gram of natural sugar. And it talks about all these fruit flavors, and I guess when I think of fruit flavors, I think of sweet. But
I also had some coffee earlier. Okay, the second sip that you get is a little bit better. I feel like there's lots of citrus in that.
There is.
I'm not
getting a lot of apple.
I am getting lime. I am getting orangey. I am getting lemony.
Not bad.
The first sip wasn't great, but I think that was just a palate cleanser, that first sip. The second one's not bad. It's still not sweet by any means, but it's not dry either.
No, it's definitely not dry. This is going to be one of my lower ratings. I'm going to give it like a 2.
I'm okay with the 2 as well. It's certainly not my favorite. There's nothing wrong with it per se, but it's certainly not knocking my socks off.
No, I probably wouldn't buy it again.
I don't think I'll...
I have some that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to go buy me another bottle of this.
Yeah.
If you're watching your calories, it's good for you, but I'm not at the moment.
Yeah, not a huge fan. I was a little concerned about it being watery.
Oh, yeah.
We've had lower calorie wines before, and they just lack flavor, and they just lack...
And I don't like a watery alcoholic beverage, period.
Exactly. And so it was a little... The other low-calorie wines that we've had in the past have always been a little watery, very light, you know. But this one does taste like a full-flavored wine. It does not taste like a low-calorie option. So I will give it that. And because, you know what? Absolutely, I'm overriding you. Because of that, I'm giving it at least a 2.5.
Oh, are you adding your 0.5?
I'm adding
now?
the 0.5. I'm giving it because I think it deserves it. This is a full-flavored Pinot Grigio.
Okay, we'll bump it up to 2.5.
All right. Decision made. Well, you've got a story for me today, and I'm actually so excited about it.
Okay, so on the night of April 25th, 2009, a 17-year-old female left a hotel in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where she was staying with friends over spring break. She walked to another hotel a short distance away, and from there, she texted her boyfriend to say that she was heading back to her motel. It was the last time she was known to be alive. Police investigated her disappearance, but no developments were made public until 2016, when it was announced that a prison inmate had told them that she had been abducted and killed. The man accused by the informant denied knowledge of the alleged crime, and based on that information, the FBI considered the case a homicide. So grab a glass,
grab a friend,
and let's dive in. Brittany Drexel was born in Rochester, New York on October 7th, 1991, to John, who was of Turkish descent, and her mother, Dawn. The two were teens and not married. Shortly after Brittany was born, Dawn married Chad Drexel, who adopted the girl at the time, and after Chad's military service ended, the family moved in to the Rochester suburb of Chile.
I wanted to do this case so bad.
Did you? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
I wanted to do it. Especially whenever they found out that I think I added it to the list when I realized that they captured the guy who had done it. Whenever the case was finally solved, because it has been such a long time. You said
2009.
2009. Yeah, so it's been such a long time, and this story has just been everywhere as unsolved, unsolved, unsolved. And you know how I hate unsolved cases, so it never made the list. And then they finally found the guy who did it and arrested him, and I added it to the list, and then you stole it from under me, and I couldn't say anything.
No. Do you want it back?
No,
I'll give it back.
No, I'm just so excited to hear you tell it. Really, I'm so happy that we're doing it, and that we're able to bring it to you with the ending, because that was my main concern. I did not want to do this case knowing that it was going to be an unsolved one. So I'm so glad that we're doing it.
So Brittanee was born with persistent hyperplastic primary vitreous in her right eye, which required several surgeries and rendered the eye blind. To cover the eye tendency to wander, she wore contact lenses that gave her a distinctive appearance.
Oh, okay.
In April of 2009, Brittanee asked her mother if she could go to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina over spring break with her boyfriend and some girlfriends. Her mother refused. Since she did not know the other teenagers and there were no accompanying adults on the trip, she also had a premonition that something bad would happen. This led to arguments between the two for several days until April 22nd, when Brittanee asked if she could go to a friend's house for a day or two to calm down, to which Dawn, of course, agreed, and that day Brittanee left for South Carolina with other students without telling her mother.
One of the things about this case that always had me baffled is, so these kids live in New York.
Yes.
Right? Which, okay, so like we're in North Carolina, as you guys know. Like what people think about New York here is, obviously big city, but there is a suburb to New York. So it is residential as well. But it's that these kids worked so hard to come all the way down to freaking Myrtle Beach.
Yes. And
we don't go to Myrtle Beach to save our lives. We try our best to stay out of Myrtle Beach now. Oh, no, high school was a whole different story. Dirty Myrtle.
In 2009 was the year we graduated, and
I'm on a boat. I'm on a boat.
I don't know how many times we went to Myrtle Beach.
We have to play the song.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, you guys. We have to stop and play the song for you guys. Hold, please. If you know this song, sing it with us, y'all. It's dirty, too.
Myrtle Beach, Myrtle Beach, Myrtle Beach. Goddamn motherfucker, Myrtle Beach. Myrtle Beach, Myrtle Beach, Myrtle Beach. Goddamn, I love Myrtle Beach. I'm gonna smoke me a joint when I get there. I'm gonna drink a cold beer when I get there. I'm gonna lay one out when I get there. And I ain't gonna sleep when I get there. Get a rebel flag raft when I get there. Airbrush t-shirts when I get there. Get some calabash shrimp when I get there. I'm gonna miss the pavilion when I get there. Myrtle Beach, Myrtle Beach.
All the memories flooding back to my brain right now.
Oh, nostalgia. I'm telling you.
Oh, my God.
Oh, goodness. It was like the freaking anthem to our summer.
And it's
for at least
a few
2
hour
years.
drive, so this played at least 3 or 4 times. It played in the hotel. It played walking everywhere we went, because there was a hotel we always stayed at that rented to under 18.
Don't stay there.
Don't God,
stay there.
No, don't stay there, because it's only probably worse
It's still standing.
Yes, it is.
It is still standing. My
My
daughter had a gymnastics competition, and whenever we found out it was in Myrtle Beach, we were like, oh no, like crap. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, we go, and what's actually really funny there is I was born there. There was a military base for the Air Force that was there, and so I was actually born in Horry County in Myrtle Beach while my dad was stationed there for the Air Force. The base has since closed, and since the base closed, that's when it became less of a military town and transferred more into a touristy area, and it's really just kind of gotten worse, like Kandi said, since then. But it was absolutely the place that all of us flocked to in high school.
I turned 21 there.
Yep, Kandi turned 21 there. And I mean, don't get me wrong, we had the time of our lives, but we would never go back now. Like, if we go to the beach now, we're looking at like the Outer Banks, North Myrtle. We would go Topsail, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, and I just think it's so funny that these kids worked so hard to get down to dirty Myrtle.
But hey, that's what they want to do for spring break, which I feel like any high school place for spring break, you want to go to a beach.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Whether it's Florida, Miami, anything like that.
Miami was something that I always wanted to do when I was younger, but that...
No, I'm not doing that.
No.
3 days later, after she and her group had arrived at the Bar Harbor Hotel in Myrtle Beach, Brittanee called her mother once during the daytime and told her that she was at the beach. Her mother was not alarmed. She assumed that Brittanee had been referring to a beach that was along the Lake Ontario shoreline.
Oh, okay.
So she didn't think that, she was all the way at Myrtle Beach.
Right,
She
that
thought she
makes
was
sense.
Just, down there.
How terrifying.
So, and that was a trip that seemed plausible to her since the
Right.
temperature in Rochester area had reached, it was unreasonably high, like 83 degrees in that area for the day.
That makes sense. She thinks the girls just packed up and headed down there
For a day.
for the day. Yeah. Wow. God,
So-
and she's how many miles away? Oh, right now that's so heartbreaking.
Couple hundred.
Oh, I'm not asking you.
Oh,
that
I
was a
was like-
rhetorical question. Sorry, I
mean,
didn't
she's-
expect you to know the mileage.
She's fairly far away from home.
Oh, that's so heartbreaking to think that your child's just down the road.
And she's not. So that night, around 8 p.m., Brittanee left her friends at the Bar Harbor Hotel beachfront to walk 1.5 miles south down to South Ocean Boulevard to visit a longtime friend who was staying at the Blue Water Resort.
That seems like a really far ways to choose, like, to walk. Even on the strip of Myrtle Beach.
But do you know
I
how
see your
much we
face.
walked?
No, I know, but to a mile though. I mean, to think. I mean, at age 17.
But we didn't walk anywhere by ourselves.
No, we were always in a big group. That was one of the rules of a beach trip, and it had nothing to do with Myrtle Beach. That was just a girl rule. That is girl code.
That's even now.
Even now, like
Nobody.
when I'm in the office, I still think maybe I should grab Katie to take her to the bathroom with me. Like, like I need a bathroom buddy. No, that's just girl code. We never went anywhere alone. But I still think that a mile to walk to another hotel seems like a long ways away to me. And I'm not sure if I would have done that, especially by myself.
I wouldn't have done it by myself.
So you have to think, like, obviously she was obviously feeling a little uncomfortable, and to make that journey to go and see somebody that she did feel comfortable with.
Security cameras at the Blue Water Resort showed her arriving. Brittanee was carrying a beige purse and wearing a black and white tank top, flip-flops, and shorts. The cameras captured her leaving around 8:45 p.m. Brittanee was texting her boyfriend, John, who had stayed in the Rochester area because of work commitments. They had been texting back and forth, but around 9:15, her text suddenly stopped, and John began calling her friends in Myrtle Beach to see if they knew where she was or what had happened.
Now, I'm going to stop because we didn't mention this beforehand, but her boyfriend did, in fact, know what she had done. Yeah, her boyfriend knew that she had went down there and had lied to her mother.
Oh, no, he was saying that, I was just saying that, he stayed back because of work.
Yes, yeah.
And
So,
then-
so they're texting, and he's aware that she is secretly in Myrtle Beach right now. Like,
Yes.
I feel like that's kind of important because her boyfriend turns out to be like a really, really sweet guy.
When, after texting her friends, to see what happened, all that stuff, when all those efforts failed, John called Brittany's mother, Dawn, who had not known that her daughter was in Myrtle Beach until she was contacted. Dawn called Chad and then let the Rochester police, hoping that they could establish communication with their counterparts in South Carolina. Repeated calls and texts to Brittany's phone went unanswered.
Yeah, so Chad, again, is the stepdad, so he goes down there, right?
Yes.
To, like, start helping out, looking for her and stuff like that. And what it actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, what happened was, like, her mom had, like, John had gotten worried. And this is why he's so sweet. Because, like, he was, like, getting really worried about her. Like, he knew that she was there. And then he, like, made the hard decision to, like, rat her out.
Yes.
To
her mom.
To her mom, which was the absolute correct thing to do.
Well, I mean, at this point, yes.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, but that was, he was really, really concerned about her. And I think it's really also cool that the stepdad went all the way down there.
Well, and he's been in her life for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Myrtle Beach police began looking for Brittanee the following morning. They located the security camera footage from the Blue Water Resort and found the friends whom she had visited. The last person who had reported seeing Brittanee before she had left was identified as Peter, a 20-year-old nightclub promoter whom she had known from the Rochester area and who was also vacationing at Myrtle Beach. They had apparently met at the local nightclub the night before, and after police interviewed Peter and the men with whom he was sharing the hotel rooms, They said that no one has been ruled out. Like, everybody was a person of interest.
Mm-hmm.
Documents show that her last text messages at 8:58 on April 25th say, "I'm staying in, packing, and going to sleep." And then no other texts were sent. According to the documents, over the next few hours, her boyfriend and other friends texted her time after time saying, "I'm concerned, send me something, we think you're missing, stop playing games." They,
Mm-hmm.
respond, let us know where you're at.
Yeah. Red flags are going off everywhere, and, like, everybody's just really worried.
Police searched Brittaney's hotel room, finding all of the clothes she had packed, but not her purse or her cell phone. The phone's network pings were tracked on a path leading 50 to 60 miles south of Myrtle Beach, in an area along U.S. Route 17 near the Georgetown Charleston County line.
Obviously in a car.
Right. I mean, she didn't walk 50, 60 miles. The pings had stopped abruptly early on the morning of April 26th. Areas near there and around Myrtle Beach where a body might have been disposed of were then searched for 11 days in 2011. Police searched an apartment in Georgetown County, but that effort did not yield any information that helped identify a suspect. Dawn and Peter had several confrontations on the TV show Dr. Phil, during which Peter often expressed frustration at the damage to his reputation. Dawn, who had driven to Myrtle Beach the day after her daughter's disappearance, eventually relocated to Myrtle Beach permanently to be close to where Brittanee had been last seen and to better monitor the progress of the investigation. In 2014 newspaper article of the case's 5th anniversary, she expressed her theory that Brittanee had defied her to go to Myrtle Beach because she'd been promised something of interest, such as a modeling job or something like that.
I don't believe any of that's true.
No.
I think she's 17, trying to fit in with these girls.
Right,
she
trying
really
to go on a
wanted an
trip with her
adventure.
friends.
Yeah, she wanted a trip. And I think I don't know if we've mentioned this or not, or if you're going to go into it a little bit further, but these girls weren't close friends of hers.
No.
They didn't know each other very, very well, and they were older. So I truly believe this was a peer pressure situation. I don't think that there was any hoax around getting her down there.
No,
I think that
she was just trying to fit in.
I think she was trying to fit in. These girls were not really of the same moral compass as she did, and I think that she ended up, getting just uncomfortable, and that's when all of this transpired. I don't think that any of this was planned.
Dawn believed that her daughter had been trafficked, but the Myrtle Beach police did not believe this was a strong possibility due to their claim of little or no trafficking taking place in their jurisdiction. Which...
Okay, we know that's some absolute bullshit.
Right. It's been going on for a long time.
Myrtle Beach has been a terrible hub for quite some time, and they've been well aware of it. Of course, I guess in 2009, maybe not.
Well, a 2019 report, 10 years later, conducted that South Carolina Human Trafficking Task Force rated Horry County as the #1 county in South Carolina for reported human trafficking victims.
Yeah, it's like one of the biggest. It's a hub.
You can't tell. Okay, maybe... Bullcrap, it wasn't. You
At
just
that
didn't
time,
know about
yeah,
it 10 years ago.
You just didn't know about it. You didn't want to talk about it. Nobody ever wants to fucking talk about it. That's the problem.
Right. It's out there, and people just trying to... I mean, I feel like 10 years ago, it was happening, just maybe not as much as it is now, but it still should have been looked at.
Yeah.
In June of 2016, the FBI held a news conference during which they stated that they believed that Brittanee had been murdered shortly after her disappearance. She had been abducted from the Myrtle Beach hotel, or Myrtle Beach Strip, and taken somewhere to the vicinity of Georgetown, near where, of course, we said her cell phone's pings. They ended, and the Bureau put up a $25,000 reward for the information leading to the resolution of the case. 2 months later, the Charleston Post and Courier reported new developments from a bond hearing for Timothy Deshawn Taylor, an inmate then serving time in state prison under an unrelated charge. FBI agent Garrick Munoz testified that earlier that year, Taquan Brown, another South Carolina inmate who had begun serving a 25-year sentence for manslaughter, told him that in 2009, shortly after Brittanee's disappearance, he had gone to visit a McClellan stash house to give money to Taylor's father.
Like a drug house.
Yeah. As he walked through the house, Brown had told Munez he saw Taylor being sexually assaulting to Brittanee with others present. He continued to the backyard where he found Taylor's father, made his prepayment, and as they talked, Brittanee ran from the house but was soon recaptured. Brown said he saw Taylor pistol whip Brittanee and then take her back inside. He then heard 2 gunshots, which he assumed were the sounds of the young woman being killed. Brown claims that he had seen a wrapped body being removed from the house, then dumped in one of the many alligator ponds in the area. Brown's statements to the investigators, said, was partially corroborated by information received from another informant who was not identified but was described as having been incarcerated at the Georgetown County Jail at the time he had talked to the authorities.
Yeah, so he's claiming that he went to this drug house and saw this person sexually assaulting Brittanee, watched her escape from the house, they catch her, bring her back, and then claims to see
her get pistol whipped and
continues to see her murder and then a body coming out of the house. You said a body sized?
A wrapped body being removed from the house.
And sees a wrapped body.
And then dumped in one of the many alligator ponds.
Yeah, so obviously, like, away from the ocean, you kind of end up in this kind of swampy area where alligators and stuff like that. So there's a ton of these areas. And let's face it, if she was in those waters, there was not going to be anything left to find.
Well, right, and this is now 2016.
Yeah, and so, so this dude claims that he saw all of this and didn't say a damn word to anybody.
Which, I mean, how could you not?
Until now. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I don't care what kind of illegal activity you're in. You're claiming to have watched this girl get murdered, and you're just going to go on about your day.
Right. Well, according to the second inmate, Taylor had picked up Brittanee in Myrtle Beach and taken her to McClellanville, where he showed her off to his friends and tried to sell her to one of them for trafficking purposes. Brown said that when the case drew heavy media attention, Taylor decided to kill Drexel to avoid arrest. The bond hearing had been held after Taylor's arrest on a federal indictment for interfering in interstate commerce by threat or violence, a charge stemming from his role as the getaway driver in a 2011 robbery of a McDonald's restaurant in Mount Pleasant. Unusually, Taylor had already been convicted for his involvement in the crime in state court and had been sentenced to probation, which he had finished by the time of the federal charges. Taylor's lawyer called the new charges a squeeze based on nothing more than the statement of the 2 jailed informants. His mother called them craziness, since she believed that her son and husband could never commit such a crime. No. Winston Holliday, the federal prosecutor at the hearing, admitted to the judge that the suspicious in the Drexel case were among the government's reasons for having brought the new charges for the conduct South Carolina had already sentenced Taylor for. In response to question of whether this amounted to double jeopardy, Holliday cited a federal law that states the federal government may bring charges for a crime if it believes the state prosecution led to an unfair outcome. In this case, Holliday noted that the other 2 participants in the robbery had both been sentenced to prison with the gunman, who shot the restaurant cashier twice, serving a 25-year minimum term. In 2017, as part of his plea bargain negotiations, Taylor took a polygraph test. Some answers to the polygraph were labeled deceptive by the FBI. According to the federal government sentencing memorandum, the only possible knowledge of the case in which Taylor admitted involving having overheard part of the argument between 2 people over who had Drexel's cell phone, a discussion he said that made him suspicious. But when Taylor was connected to the polygraph and asked whether he had seen Drexel after the disappearance or if he knew who was involved, the examiner determined he was not being truthful. Under the plea bargain, he would thus face at least 10 years in prison for his role in the 2011 robbery back at McDonald's. And after reviewing the results with Taylor's lawyer, the examiner attempted to continue, but Taylor was too angry to do so. The government's memo recommended the minimum sentence. Before the sentencing hearing was scheduled, Taylor was found to have violated the terms of his bail and was held in Charleston County Jail. In February of 2019, Brown gave a telephone interview to Rochester Station from the McCormick Correctional Institute, where he was incarcerated. He said he had actually seen Brittanee 4 times after her disappearance, in addition to the first encounter.
Which completely contradicts his original story about the situation, seeing her die the same day.
Right.
That he sees her being sexually assaulted and escapes and then captured again. And now you're saying Oh no, I saw her 4 different times. Oh, but no, then they took her to the alligator pit. Well, no, then, then they tried to sell her. It's like,
Well, then again, a month later, it was at the time she was killed.
Yeah.
So, like, his story just keeps changing. It's not making sense.
it's elaborate and snowballing, and
Yeah.
people are just like very confused as to like what to believe. It was a crazy time.
Brown claimed he saw Brittanee being sexually assaulted by a group of 8 to 12 young men at the McClellan stash house on April 27th, 2 days after her disappearance. He did not recognize her at the time, but realized who she was a month later when publicity arose around the case. His second encounter with Brittanee came a few days later. This was the event that he described to the FBI with the gunshots inside the building and the body being carried out in a rug.
Oh, okay, so he's claiming that it was 2 different days.
Yes, now he is.
Mm-hmm.
He claimed his third encounter was 5 days later when he saw Drexel on a lightly traveled dirt road near his cousin's residence in Jacksonboro, 80 miles south of McClellanville. Brown claimed to have seen Brittanee for the last time in late May, once again on his cousin's property, while visiting with another friend. In a wooded area at the rear of the property, Brown claimed to have witnessed Brittanee being murdered by a man whom Brown knew only as Nate.
Oh, so now Taylor didn't do it, now Nate did it.
Right, but you're on your cousin's property, and you don't know who this man is, you only know him by Nate. Like,
And a couple of days earlier, you just saw her wandering on a dirt road.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Your story's not adding up there, friend.
Not at all.
Well, apparently Nate shot her twice with a double-barreled shotgun. Brown and his friend left immediately, fearing being considered accomplices if they had remained. Well, even if you supposedly know about it.
You're still an accomplice even if you run away from the scene.
Right. Well, WHEC was able to partially corroborate Brown's account. His description of McClellanville Stash House matched the station's own reporting from 2016 when they visited. His account of the second visit, when he believed Drexel had been shot, is consistent with the original story as told to the FBI. The station was unable to locate the friend whom Brown said had accompanied him on this last visit. The cousin who owned the property where Brittanee was reportedly killed had since died.
Of course he did.
Right. Another witness whom Brown had named could not be found. That was probably Nate.
Yeah, Nate.
Probably Nate.
This case is so frustrating.
Brown filed a suit against Munoz, Holiday, and other federal officials whom he said had identified him publicly or played a role in doing so. By doing so, he alleged they gave him a reputation as a snitch and put his life in danger. Brown claimed that Taylor offered a bounty to anyone who killed Brown and that he had already been assaulted.
I'm sorry, I don't think that's that is nobody else's fault except for yours.
Right.
You can't
Snitches get stitches.
Snitches get stitches. All right, I'm here to tell you, you cannot frequent drug houses and associate with gangbangers and associate with people who would claim to be in the sex trafficking ring and then claim that once you get caught for your association with those people that the government and the police bashed your good name.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you snitched, you snitched. What do you expect's going to happen if you're in with this group of people that do bad things? They're going to do bad things to you because you snitched on them. Like, let's use common sense here.
This isn't the police's fault at all. You made your bed when you... never mind.
Yeah. And really, I don't even understand how he snitched when he has 500 different stories. So
you make a good point. You haven't even actually really snitched because nobody's able to follow what the fuck you've said so far.
Your cousin died. They couldn't find the friend that went with you on this visit, and the other person that you named couldn't be found.
Yeah, it's like, like they're just a bunch of imaginary friends, and you have no association with this case at all, is what it sounds like. So you haven't really even snitched on nobody because nobody knows what the fuck you're talking about.
Well, in early May of 2022, just last year, Raymond Moody, a 62-year-old registered sex offender, turned himself in to the Georgetown County Sheriff's Office on basis of an obstruction of justice charge. Police had first considered Moody a person of interest in Brittanee's disappearance in early They considered him as early as 2012.
Yeah, he was on their radar for a few reasons really early on in the situation. Well, what we consider to be early on.
Yeah.
It was a couple of years after 2009, like you said, 2012. But yeah, they had ultimately kind of looked into him and kind of dismissed what they had found.
Moody ended up confessing to the crime and provided the location of potential remains. The FBI excavated the site over the next 3 days. By May 11th, human remains were located buried in the woods off a gated private drive outside of Georgetown, about 4 feet into the ground. They were identified as Drexel's through DNA and dental records on May 15th. The arrest warrant alleged that Drexel had been strangled, then buried by the morning of April 26, 2009. Georgetown County Sheriff's Office, along with Brittanee's family, made the information public on May 16th, along with the announcement of Moody's arrest. Moody was arrested again and charged with murder, kidnapping, and first-degree criminal sexual misconduct, all alleged to have occurred on the day Drexel disappeared. On October 19th, Moody pleaded guilty to all the charges and was sentenced to life in prison, with an additional 2 consecutive terms of 30 years. So, Mr. Brown over here, who told all these stories, was full of shit.
Full of shit.
Did not know anything he was talking about, and was just led the police on this wild goose chase. When in reality, finally in 2022, this Raymond, who is now 62 years old, comes and turns himself in.
Mm-hmm. It was a wild ride. And so many podcasts had covered this case beforehand. There was still active investigations open. It was just madness. And I remember finally whenever we got the news that they had finally solved the case and that somebody had confessed.
And how did this 62-year-old man keep this to himself? I mean, okay, yes, he has his charges, but how do you keep, knowing this is everywhere, you kept this for years?
I think that's one of the reasons. I think, and this is an issue that I think that we have with our media in general, is obviously she's a beautiful, young, white woman, mm-hmm. and, went missing. And obviously the media blew it up, because she's the textbook kidnapping case that sells headlines. Unfortunately, Indigenous women, Black women, really any woman of color who goes missing, they never get the same amount of headlines. But I think that probably what happened is he killed her, and when he saw how big it was getting, he knew that he was going to go down even harder for it.
Right.
And so I think that's probably one of the reasons that he never, and I'm sure that he thought he was home free, because Brown and Taylor, whenever they got involved, everybody thought it was solved. Everybody thought it was done.
Right. He's like, oh, okay. If they want to sit here and take the rap for it.
And let's just, come on. It's not like they were innocent.
Well, no, but still.
Not of this crime, but they weren't innocent people. You
right.
know what I'm saying? So he probably thought, well, hell, I'm home free. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and why Brown sit here and said all this stuff? I don't even get that. You literally had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, fabricated everything. I will never understand why people, there's a few documentaries out there that I think I'm going to probably add to my playlist about why people confess to things that they didn't do. And I'm sure that there's a number of psychological reasons, but it just never makes any sense to me.
Well, and I get those situations to where, you're just being, badgered about something and you just want it to end.
Yes.
And you go to admit about, that you did this when you really didn't, and you're, interrogated for 48, 36, 72 hours, whatever, but you literally had nothing. You literally never even saw her.
Yeah.
And then you put the police on this wild goose chase when they really could have probably gotten him sooner.
Mm-hmm. Her stepdad, Chad, and this kind of was, again, kind of just fuel to the fire and people just trying to put these puzzle pieces together. But her stepfather, Chad, had started passing out flyers on the New York Strip, on the Myrtle Beach Strip, and he was giving them to everyone. And he, made the comment. He said most people would take one, look at it, some would stop and talk. Most people would see it, fold it up, whatever. But he said that specifically he had handed it to this one group of guys who he swears was Brown and Taylor. And they ended up crumpling it on the floor and throwing it out of their car window and laughing at him to his face, is what he claims, and then drove off. And then after he confessed, Chad was like, oh yeah, I saw that guy, this is what he did, solidifying, whenever in all reality,
it probably, of course they did that.
Well, it probably wasn't even Taylor and Brown, though, that he handed the flyer to. He was just kind of digging for some sort of emotional connection to why somebody on the Myrtle Beach Strip would crumple up a missing persons flyer and then laugh in your face. So he thought, oh, they must be involved. But it turned out not to be the case. But just, could you imagine how agonizing?
Moody said the three had ended up at a campsite that Moody had in Georgetown, where Moody admitted to that he hoped during the course of the night that there would be consensual sex with Drexel. At some point of the night, Voss was Moody's girlfriend at the time. So they all three went to this campsite. Voss left the campsite to attend to a family member, and that's when Moody came on to Drexel, and she resisted the sexual advances, according to Moody. He told law enforcement that when he essentially kidnapped her and sexually assaulted her, Moody said once he realized what he had done, he realized he was going to go back to prison, and that's when he strangled her. Then he put her in a blanket and moved her to some bushes in the area. Moody and Voss returned to the area and asked... Moody said that Voss returned to the area and asked where Drexel was, and Moody said that friends came to pick her up. Came to pick Brittanee up. Mm-hmm. At some point in the night, Moody ended up taking Drexel's remains and went up to Pennyroyal Road and took her to an area where he buried her, according to him. Everything, yeah.
What on earth would make what would make a 17-year-old girl end up in
a 40, 50-something-year-old
campground with a 40, 50-something-year-old man and his girlfriend? Like, tell me what sense that makes.
Apparently. So, of course, in court, her mama, Brittanee's mom, told him, I hope you suffer in prison for the rest of your life. I have no regard for you, just like you had no regard for my daughter. And then, finally, once the state rested, Moody made a quick statement where he apologized for what he did to Brittanee. He, quote, I was a monster. I was a monster then, and I was a monster when I took Brittanee Drexel's life. I don't have the words to express how horrible I feel. I'm very sorry.
I bet you are. Rotten hell. So as soon as she went missing and the police get involved, all of these kids, lawyer up. And they don't say a word to anybody. They don't talk to the police. They don't want to be involved. A lot of them make the comment that it wasn't their job to, keep tabs on her or to babysit her because she was a little younger. And her mother, I remember her mother expressing just absolute astonishment. If your brother or sister was missing and my daughter was with them, you would expect my daughter to do something, and here we are, you guys they're just being really callous about it. But there was talk about how the boys on the trip and the girls on the trip at some point were planning on switching hotel rooms. So, all of the girls had, packed up their stuff, and, the guys had packed up their stuff, and they were going to switch hotel rooms for some reason. I think they were also getting ready. This all happened the day before they were supposed to leave, I think. Like I said, just a lot.
So that's why she was packing her stuff.
Yeah, just, a lot of weird stuff. And all of these kids dipset. Some of them hadn't even checked out of the hotel room before they were back in New York with their parents whenever all of this happened.
I mean, I'm sure they were scared, but still.
I think they all left a day early, did not check out of the hotel rooms, and they just hightailed it back to New York. And so, which is, again, looking back on it, yes, I mean, they seem to be unhelpful. They seem to be smug and cocky. The media definitely paints them that way, but in the end, they didn't know where this girl was, and they didn't do anything to hurt her.
Right.
They weren't.
I can understand as a young adult being scared that you're about to get pinned with something you have no idea.
Exactly. And so, and I mean, that's kind of my, like, if I have vowed to myself that if I ever end up in a police interrogation room, that I'm not speaking. Like, I will not talk. But I'm sorry, until I have a lawyer present to speak on my behalf, I will not be opening my mouth. That, that's just good rule of thumb. You're not under any sort of obligation to do so, and so I wouldn't have spoken either. But I do see how that can come off as like being just, indifferent to the situation. But they really didn't have any idea where she was or what had happened. And like you said, I think that they were all really scared that they were going to try to pin this on somebody.
Yeah, that she was with.
That she was
which
with.
Would have been easier.
Absolutely. Definitely an easier story to take, and easier to piece together, for sure. But that just wasn't the case. So I'm just glad to hear that none of them ended up being involved. You guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us again for another episode. We love you guys so much. Definitely go sign up for our Patreon. Like I said, you can find some links for all of that on our website at sipsofcrime.com, and all of our social media links as well. So you can go check those out and get some extra content, some behind the scenes, laugh it up with us a little bit, have a snack, have a drink. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, a great rest of your week, and we will talk to you guys in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Bye!
Bye!
You can join our freaky family both on Instagram and Facebook, and find all of the featured photos from this episode at Sips of Crime.
Check out our website, www.sipsofcrime.com. There you can get to know a little about us and stay up to date with our monthly newsletter. We love connecting with our listeners and enjoy sharing your personal true crime, paranormal, or just downright funny stories. So submit those through the form provided on the website.
You can also help us grow our freaky family by sharing the podcast with others. And of course, let's not forget rocking our merch.
Thanks for listening.
Stay alive.